The term Hispanic broadly refers to the peoples, nations, and cultures that have a historical link to Spain. It commonly applies to countries once colonized by Spain, particularly the countries of Latin America. It could be argued that the term should apply to all Spanish-speaking cultures or countries, as the historical roots of the word specifically pertain to the Iberian region. It is difficult to label a nation or culture with one term, such as Hispanic, as the ethnicities, customs, traditions, and art forms vary greatly by country and region. The Spanish language and Spanish culture are the main traditions. Hispanic originally referred to the people of ancient Roman Hispania, which roughly comprised the Iberian Peninsula including the contemporary states of Spain, Portugal, Andorra and the British Overseas Territory of Gibraltar. Terminology. The term Hispanic derives from Hispanicus. Hispania may in turn derive from Latin Hispanicus, or from Greek iota sigma pi alpha nu iota alpha Hispania and iota sigma pi alpha nu omicron sigma Hispanos, probably from Celtiberian or from Basque z pana. In English the word is attested from the 16th century. The words Spain, Spanish, and Spaniard are of the same etymology as Hispanus. Ultimately, Hispanus was the Latin name given to a person from Hispania during Roman rule. In English, the term Hispano-Roman is sometimes used. The Hispano-Romans were composed of people from many different tribes. Some famous Hispano were Marcus Annaeus Lucanus, Martial, Prudentius, Theodosius I, and Magnus Maximus and Maximus of Hispania. Here follows a comparison of several terms related to Hispanic. Hispania was the name of the Iberian Peninsula, Iberia from the 3rd century BC to the 8th AD, both as a Roman Empire province and immediately thereafter as a Visigothic kingdom, 5th–8th century. Hispano-Roman is used to refer to the culture and people of Hispania. Hispanic is used to refer to modern Spain, to the Spanish language, and to the Spanish-speaking nations of the world and particularly the Americas. Spanish is used to refer to the people, nationality, culture, language and other things of Spain. Spaniard is used to refer to the people of Spain. Hispania was the Roman name for the whole territory of the Iberian Peninsula. Initially, this territory was divided into two provinces, Hispania Citerior and Hispania Ulterior. In 27 BC, Hispania Ulterior was divided into two new provinces, Hispania Baetica and Hispania Lusitania, while Hispania Citerior was renamed Hispania Tarraconensis. This division of Hispania explains the usage of the singular and plural forms used to refer to the peninsula and its kingdoms in the Middle Ages. Before the marriage of Queen Isabella I of Castile and King Ferdinand II of Aragon in 1469, the four Christian kingdoms of the Iberian Peninsula, the Kingdom of Portugal, the Crown of Aragon, the Crown of Castile, and the Kingdom of Navarre, were collectively called the Spains. This revival of the old Roman concept in the Middle Ages appears to have originated in Provençal, and was first documented at the end of the 11th century. In the Council of Constance, the four kingdoms shared one vote. The word Lusitanian relates to Lusitania or Portugal, also in reference to the Lusitanians, possibly one of the first Indo-European tribes to settle in Europe. From this tribe's name had derived the name of the Roman province of Lusitania, and Lusitania remains the name of Portugal in Latin. The terms Spain and the Spains were not interchangeable. Spain was a geographic territory, home to several kingdoms, with separate governments, laws, languages, religions, and customs, and was the historical remnant of the Hispanic Gothic unity. Spain was not a political entity until much later, and when referring to the Middle Ages, one should not be confounded with the nation-state of today. The term the Spains referred specifically to a collective of juridico-political units, first the Christian kingdoms, and then the different kingdoms ruled by the same king. With the Decretos de Nueva Planta, Philip V started to organize the fusion of his kingdoms that until then were ruled as distinct and independent. But this unification process lacked a formal and juridic proclamation. Although colloquially and literally the expression "King of Spain" or "King of the Spains" was already widespread, it did not refer to a unified nation-state. It was only in the Constitution of 1812 that was adopted the name Españas for the Spanish nation and the use of the title of King of the Spains. The Constitution of 1876 adopts for the first time the name of Spain for the Spanish nation, and from then on the kings would use the title of King of Spain. The expansion of the Spanish Empire between 1492 and 1898 brought thousands of Spanish migrants to the conquered lands, who established settlements, mainly in the Americas, but also in other distant parts of the world, producing a number of multiracial populations. Today, the term Hispanic is typically applied to the varied populations of these places, including those with little or no Spanish ancestry. Definitions: in ancient Rome, the Latin Gentile adjectives that belong to Hispania are Hispanis, Hispanicus, and Hispaniensis. A Hispanus is someone who is a native of Hispania with no foreign parents, while children born in Hispania of Roman parents were Hispaniensis. Hispaniensis means connected in some way to Hispania, as in Exercitus Hispaniensis or Mercators Hispanienses. Hispanicus implies of or belonging to Hispania or the Hispanis, or of their fashion, as in Gladius Hispanicus. The Gentile adjectives were not ethno-linguistic but derived primarily on a geographic basis from the toponym Hispania, as the people of Hispania spoke different languages, although Livy said they could all understand each other, not making clear if they spoke dialects of the same language or were polyglots. The first recorded use of an anthroponym derived from the toponym Hispania is attested in one of the 5 fragments of Ennius in 236 BC, who wrote, Hispana, non Romain memoretus loquimi, as having been said by a native of Hispania. Definitions: in Portugal and Spain, persons from Portugal or of Portuguese extraction are known as Lusitanians or Lusophonos, not Hispanic. In Portugal, Hispanic refers to something related to ancient Hispania, Spain, or the Spanish language and culture, not Portugal. Portugal and Spain do not have exactly the same definition for the term Hispanic, but they do share the etymology for the word. The Royal Spanish Academy, the official royal institution responsible for regulating the Spanish language, defines the term Hispano as of or pertaining to Spain, Spanish as applied to a person belonging or relative to Old Hispania, of or pertaining to the nations of Hispanic America, of or pertaining to the population of Hispanic American origin who live in the United States of America, a person of this origin who lives in the United States of America. It has been used throughout history for many purposes, including drawing a contrast to the Moors and differentiating explorers and settlers. The correct modern term to identify Portuguese and Spanish cultures under a single nomenclature is Iberian, and the one to refer to cultures derived from both countries in the Americas is Iberian American. These designations can be mutually recognized by people in Portugal and Brazil, unlike Hispanic, which is totally void of any self-identification in those countries, and quite on the opposite, serves the purpose of marking a clear distinction in relation to neighboring countries' culture. In Spanish, the term Hispano, as in Hispano-Americano, refers to the people of Spanish origin who live in the Americas. It also refers to a relationship to Hispania or to the Spanish language. There are people in Hispanic America that are not of Spanish origin, as the original people of these areas are Amerindians. Definitions in the United States today. Organizations in the United States use the term as a broad catch-all to refer to persons with a historical and cultural relationship with Spain, regardless of race and ethnicity. The U.S. Census Bureau defines the ethnonym Hispanic or Latino to refer to a person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin regardless of race, and states that Hispanics or Latinos can be of any race, any ancestry, any ethnicity. Generically, this limits the definition of Hispanic or Latino to people from the Caribbean, Central and South America, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race, distinctly excluding all persons of Portuguese origin. Because of the technical distinctions involved in defining race versus ethnicity, there is confusion among the general population about the designation of Hispanic identity. Currently, the United States Census Bureau defines 5 race categories: white or Caucasian, black or African American, Native American or Alaska Native, Asian, Native Hawaiian or other Pacific Islander. According to census reports, of the above races, the largest number of Hispanic or Latinos are of the white race. The second largest number come from the Native American, American Indian race, who are the indigenous people of the Americas. The inhabitants of Easter Island are Pacific Islanders, and since the island belongs to Chile, they are theoretically Hispanic or Latinos. Because Hispanic roots are considered aligned with a European ancestry, Hispanic, Latino ancestry is defined solely as an ethnic designation. Therefore, a person of Hispanic descent is typically defined using both race and ethnicity as an identifier, i.e., Black Hispanic, White Hispanic, Asian Hispanic, Amerindian Hispanic, or other race Hispanic. Officially, however, the U.S. government has defined Hispanic or Latino persons as being persons who trace their origin or descent to Mexico, Puerto Rico, Cuba, Central and South America, and other Spanish cultures. This includes Spain, which is the origin of Spanish culture. The United States Census uses the ethnonym Hispanic or Latino to refer to a person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin regardless of race. These definitions include Spain but fully exclude non-Spanish-speaking persons of Portuguese culture or origin, based in Europe, but leave room for misinterpretation regarding persons of Brazilian origin. The same happens to persons who can trace their origins to Suriname and Guyana. None of these countries regard themselves as Hispanic. Under the aforementioned definitions by the U.S. government, it is clear that persons of Portuguese culture should not be classified as Hispanic. The U.S. Office of Management and Budget currently defines Hispanic or Latino as a person of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin, regardless of race. The 2010 census asked if the person was Spanish, Hispanic, Latino. The United States Census uses the ethnonym Hispanic or Latino to refer to a person of Cuban, Mexican, Puerto Rican, South or Central American, or other Spanish culture or origin regardless of race. The Census Bureau also explains that origin can be viewed as the heritage, nationality group, lineage, or country of birth of the person or the person's ancestors before their arrival in the United States. People who identify their origin as Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish may be of any race. The U.S. Department of Transportation defines Hispanic as persons of Mexican, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican, Central or South American, or other Spanish or Portuguese culture or origin. Regardless of race, this definition has been adopted by the Small Business Administration as well as by many federal, state, and municipal agencies for the purposes of awarding government contracts to minority-owned businesses. The Congressional Hispanic Caucus and the Congressional Hispanic Conference include representatives of Spanish and Portuguese, Puerto Rican and Mexican descent. The Hispanic Society of America is dedicated to the study of the arts and cultures of Spain, Portugal, and Latin America. The Hispanic Association of Colleges and Universities, proclaimed champions of Hispanic success in higher education, is committed to Hispanic educational success in the U.S. state Puerto Rico, Iberoamerica, Spain and Portugal. The U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission encourages any individual who believes that he or she is Hispanic to self-identify as Hispanic. The United States Department of Labor, Office of Federal Contract Compliance Programs encourages the same self-identification. As a result, any individual who traces his or her origins to part of the Spanish Empire or Portuguese Empire may self-identify as Hispanic, because an employer may not override an individual's self-identification. The 1970 census was the first time that a Hispanic identifier was used on data collected with the question. The definition of Hispanic has been modified in each successive census. In a recent study, most Spanish speakers of Spanish or Hispanic American descent do not prefer the term Hispanic or Latino when it comes to describing their identity. Instead, they prefer to be identified by their country of origin. When asked if they have a preference for either being identified as Hispanic or Latino, the Pew study finds that half say they have no preference for either term. A majority say they most often identify themselves by their family's country of origin, while 24% say they prefer a pan-ethnic label such as Hispanic or Latino. Among those 24% who have a preference for a pan-ethnic label, Hispanic is preferred over Latino by more than a 2-to-1 margin, 33% versus 14%. 21% prefer to be referred to simply as Americans. Hispanicization. Hispanicization is the process by which a place or a person absorbs characteristics of Hispanic society and culture. Modern Hispanization of a place, namely in the United States, might be illustrated by Spanish-language media and businesses. Hispanization of a person might be illustrated by speaking Spanish, making and eating Hispanic American food, listening to Spanish-language music or participating in Hispanic festivals and holidays. Hispanization of those outside the Hispanic community is opposed to assimilation of Hispanics into theirs. One reason that some people believe the assimilation of Hispanics in the U.S. is not comparable to that of other cultural groups is that Hispanic and Latino Americans have been living in parts of North America for centuries, in many cases well before the English-speaking culture became dominant. For example, California, Texas, Colorado, New Mexico, Arizona, Nevada, Florida and Puerto Rico have been home to Spanish-speaking peoples since the 16th century, long before the U.S. existed. These and other Spanish-speaking territories were part of the Viceroyalty of New Spain, and later Mexico, before these regions joined or were taken over by the United States in 1848. Some cities in the U.S. were founded by Spanish settlers as early as the 16th century, prior to the creation of the 13 colonies. For example, San Miguel de Guadalupe, Pensacola, and St. Augustine, Florida were founded in 1526, 1559 and 1565 respectively. Santa Fe, New Mexico was founded in 1604, and Albuquerque was established in 1660. El Paso was founded in 1659, San Antonio in 1691, Laredo, Texas in 1755, San Diego in 1769, San Francisco in 1776, San Jose, California in 1777. New Iberia, Louisiana in 1779, and Los Angeles in 1781. Therefore, in many parts of the U.S., the Hispanic cultural legacy predates English-British influence. For this reason, many generations have largely maintained their cultural traditions and Spanish language well before the United States was created. However, Spanish-speaking persons in many Hispanic areas in the U.S. amounted to only a few thousand people when they became part of the United States. A large majority of current Hispanic residents are descended from Hispanics who entered the United States in the mid to late 20th and early 21st centuries. Language retention is a common index to assimilation. According to the 2000 census, about 75% of all Hispanics spoke Spanish in the home. Spanish language retention rates vary geographically. Parts of Texas and New Mexico have language retention rates over 90%, whereas in parts of Colorado and California, retention rates are lower than 30%. The degree of retention of Spanish as the native language is based on recent arrival from countries where Spanish is spoken. As is true of other immigrants, those who were born in other countries still speak their native language. Later generations are increasingly less likely to speak the language spoken in the country of their ancestors, as is true of other immigrant groups, Spanish-speaking countries and regions. Today, Spanish is among the most commonly spoken first languages of the world. During the period of the Spanish Empire from 1492 and 1898, many people migrated from Spain to the conquered lands. The Spaniards brought with them the Castilian language and culture, and in this process that lasted several centuries, created a global empire with a diverse population. Miscegenation between peoples in the colonies led to the creation of the new mixed peoples, chiefly half-caste and mulattoes, in many countries. Culturally, Spaniards are typically European, but they also have small traces of many peoples from the rest of Europe, the Near East and the Mediterranean areas of northern Africa. The Hispanic countries, including Spain, are also inhabited by peoples of non-Spanish ancestry, to widely varying extents.